The film begins with a Korean novel called 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse. But this was not just an ordinary story. It was a massive novel that had been running for almost 10 years, with more than 3,000 chapters. In the beginning, many people followed the story, but as the chapters kept increasing, the plot became too long and complicated for most readers. Slowly, everyone stopped reading it. In the end, only one person stayed with the novel until the final chapter. His name was Kim Dokja. Dokja was a simple and lonely man. Since childhood, whenever he suffered from bullying at school, struggled in college, or faced stress at work, this novel became his only comfort. While the real world kept hurting him, this story gave him a reason to keep going. The novel followed a hero named Yoo Jung-hyuk. He had a special power called regression. It meant that whenever he died, he could return to the past and try again to save the world. Dokja admired Jung-hyuk because his endless struggle gave him the courage to survive his own boring and painful life. On the day the novel finally ended, Dokja was traveling home on the subway. As he read the final chapter, he became deeply disappointed. The ending was tragic. The hero survived, but everyone else died. Unable to accept it, Dokja angrily left a comment for the author, saying that the ending was terrible. To his surprise, the author replied. He thanked Dokja and told him that he was the reason the novel had been completed. Then, the author added something strange. If Dokja did not like the ending, he could write his own. Dokja could not understand what those words meant, but exactly at 7 p.m., the train suddenly shook. The lights began to flicker, phone signals disappeared, and the entire world seemed to change in an instant. A mysterious voice announced that the free service had ended and the paid service was now beginning. Everyone inside the train was confused. No one understood what was happening. Suddenly, a small creature appeared in the air. It introduced itself as a dokebi. The moment Dokja saw it, he froze, because he recognized that creature from the novel. The dokebi told the frightened passengers that their peaceful lives were over. From now on, they had to prove that they deserved to live. At first, everyone thought it was some kind of prank. But to prove that everything was real, the creature suddenly exploded a man's head in front of them. Panic spread through the train. People screamed and ran in every direction. Then, the dokebi gave them their first mission. Within the next 10 minutes, they had to kill one living thing inside the train. If they failed, everyone would die. Some passengers froze in fear. Others lost control and began attacking each other to survive. But among all of them, only Dokja remained calm. Because he had already seen this scene before. This was exactly how the novel began. And since the world had now turned into the same story he had read for 10 years, Dokja realized one terrifying truth. He already knew everything that was about to happen. Dokja understood one important detail that everyone else had missed. The mission only said they had to kill a living thing. It never said that living thing had to be a human. At that moment, Dokja noticed a young boy holding a small box filled with insects. Without wasting any time, he rushed toward the boy, took the box, and killed one insect. Then, he quickly gave some insects to his coworker who was standing nearby. Because of this, Dokja became the first person to complete the mission. The system immediately announced that he had earned 300 coins. Soon, he realized that coins were the currency of this new world. With coins, people could buy items, abilities, and power to protect themselves. Suddenly, Dokja noticed that the passengers had stopped killing each other. But one boy was still attacking an old woman. Dokja immediately recognized him as Namwoon, a dangerous and unstable character from the novel. Dokja wanted to save the old woman, but he knew he was too weak to fight Namwoon directly. Then he remembered something important. In this world, coins could be used to buy almost anything, even strength. So Dokja opened his status menu and spent his coins to increase his strength stat. In the next moment, his body felt lighter, faster, and stronger than before. With this new power, Dokja attacked Namwoon and defeated him easily. After that, Dokja tried to save the old woman by giving her an insect to kill. But unfortunately, she could not do it before the timer reached 0. When the countdown ended, only Dokja, his coworker, and the little boy had completed the mission. Everyone else failed, and the system killed them instantly. In a single moment, the train became filled with dead bodies. The dokebi returned, excited by the bloodshed. It explained that powerful beings called constellations were watching everything from the stars, as if this entire tragedy was just entertainment for them. Soon after, the train stopped on a bridge. Suddenly, a gigantic monster jumped out from the water and smashed into the bridge, destroying it. The passengers were thrown into chaos, and many fell toward their deaths. But Dokja and the remaining survivors forced the train doors open, grabbed the little boy, and ran across the broken bridge. For a moment, they thought they had escaped, but the danger was far from over. The dead passengers suddenly began turning into zombies and chasing them. Dokja and the others believed they were going to die, until Dokja looked back and saw someone fighting the zombies with unbelievable ease. It was Yoo Jung-hyuk, the hero of the novel. When Jung-hyuk noticed Dokja and the other survivors, he was shocked. As a regressor, he had lived through this world before. He remembered what happened in the past, and according to his memory, nobody was supposed to survive that train. Because of this, Jung-hyuk grabbed Dokja and held him over the edge of the broken bridge. Below them, the sea monster waited with its mouth wide open. Jung-hyuk demanded to know who Dokja was and how he had survived. But Dokja could not reveal the truth. He could not say that he knew everything because he had read it in a novel. So Dokja lied and told him that he was a prophet who could see the future. Jung-hyuk stared at him coldly and said that if he really had such a power, then he should use it to survive this. Then, without hesitation, Jung-hyuk threw Dokja straight into the monster's mouth. Dokja fell straight into the monster's stomach. Everything around him was completely dark, and soon, deadly acid began rising beneath him. If he stayed there for too long, he would be burned alive. But Dokja did not panic. He already knew that the Dokkaebi had a hidden streaming channel inside this place. So he called out to the Dokkaebi and told him that he knew exactly what he wanted. A good stream for the viewers. Dokja promised that he would make the situation interesting enough to keep the constellations watching. In return, the Dokkaebi would earn a lot of coins. The Dokkaebi liked the idea, but he demanded a share of the profit. Dokja agreed without hesitation. Because of this deal, Dokja received some coins. He immediately used them to buy a weapon made from a horn. Then, from inside the monster's stomach, he attacked it and killed it. After that, he cut through the monster's body and escaped alive. By surviving this impossible situation, Dokja earned a huge number of coins and valuable items. He traded some of those items with the Dokkaebi and received a special skill called Unbroken Faith. Dokja knew this skill would become useful later. After that, he wore a mask to hide his identity and headed toward the nearest safe zone. On the way, he saw a group of thugs attacking a woman. Dokja instantly recognized her as Hee-won, a character who was supposed to die early in the novel. But this time, Dokja decided to change the story. Using his courage and newly gained power, he fought the thugs and saved her. Hee-won was grateful, and from that moment, she decided to follow him. Together, they reached a station where many survivors had gathered. But this station was controlled by a wicked man. On the outside, he acted like he was helping everyone. But in reality, he was using weak people as bait for monsters, just so he could earn more coins. Dokja already knew how evil this man was. When the man tried to recruit him and demanded his coins, Dokja refused. Because of this, the other survivors started thinking Dokja was selfish. But Dokja did not care about their opinion. He knew that simply giving them coins would not truly save them. If they survived this level only by borrowing coins, they would still die in the next one. So instead of feeding the system, Dokja decided to break it. He told everyone that he would not give them coins. Instead, he would open the escape tunnel and give them a real chance to survive. After that, Dokja formed a small team. His group included a soldier, Hee-won, his co-worker, and himself. The little boy with the insects also joined them, because he had the special ability to communicate with bugs. Dokja knew this power would become useful. Together, they entered the dark tunnel. Deep inside, they encountered a terrifying demon monster called the Ground Rat. The battle was extremely dangerous. The monster released a poisonous effect that caused people to hallucinate. Anyone affected by it would become trapped inside their worst memories, forced to relive the painful moments that still haunted them. The poison trapped each person inside their most painful memories. The soldier remembered the moment he failed to save his own army unit. Hee-won saw the same thugs who had hurt her before. One by one, everyone froze in fear, unable to fight back. But Dokja was different. He had a special skill called the fourth wall. This skill protected his mind from being controlled by emotions. Because of that, the fear did not affect him like it affected the others. Dokja shouted at his team and pulled them out of their hallucinations. Soon, everyone came back to their senses and started fighting again. During the battle, Dokja bought an ability called White Pure Star Energy. The moment he used it, his weapon began to glow with powerful light. Then Dokja and Hee-won attacked the ground rat together and finally killed the monster. After the battle, they discovered a treasure chest filled with weapons. Everyone picked a weapon for themselves, but Dokja chose only a broken sword handle. The others thought it was useless trash. But Dokja knew its true value. This was exactly why he had bought the Unbroken Faith skill earlier. As soon as Dokja used that skill on the broken sword handle, it transformed into a glowing blade of light. It became a powerful lightsaber-like weapon that could cut through almost any enemy. After completing the mission, Dokja and his team returned to the station. There, they exposed the evil leader who had been using weak survivors as bait. Hee-won, who had already suffered because of cruel people like him, could not control her anger. She killed the evil leader and freed the survivors from his control. But they had no time to rest. The next level was waiting for them at Chungmuro Station. When Dokja and his team reached Chungmuro, the situation was already terrible. The new mission was called Green Zone. To survive the night, people had to stand inside a green square. But there were too many survivors and not enough zones. Because of this, a powerful man known as the Landlord had taken control of the green zones. He started selling space inside them for coins. Anyone who could not pay would be left outside, where monsters would kill them. At Chungmuro, Dokja met a high school girl who claimed to be a student of Junghyuk. She told him that Junghyuk had already left to fight monsters. Dokja quickly understood the situation and formed a plan. He did not want to fight the landlord immediately. Instead, he offered him a large amount of coins to rent a room. But the Dokkaebi noticed what was happening. Since the constellations wanted more drama and bloodshed, the Dokkaebi suddenly made the game even harder. He reduced the number of green zones, forcing the survivors into greater panic. As the zones disappeared one by one, monsters began attacking the people left outside. Everyone became terrified, and the situation turned into chaos. This was exactly what the Dokkaebi wanted. He was trying to make humans kill each other for survival. Dokja realized that this game was completely unfair. Fighting over a room would only continue the same cruel system. So he understood the real solution. Instead of fighting for a green zone, they had to destroy the room itself. If the zone disappeared, the rules connected to it would no longer apply. But this plan was extremely risky. Dokja looked at the monsters surrounding them and made a dangerous decision. If he could kill the boss monster, the entire scenario might end quickly. But there was one terrifying problem. The boss monster of this place was not an ordinary creature. It was a deadly dragon. According to the original novel, this was one of the most dangerous scenarios in the entire story. This was the place where Junghyuk had died countless times before, only to use his regression ability and restart his life from the beginning. Dokja knew something nobody else did. If Junghyuk died and restarted again, the current timeline would be erased. That meant Dokja and all of his friends would disappear along with it. To prevent that from happening, he had to make sure Junghyuk survived. Without wasting any time, Dokja and his team entered the battlefield. There, they found Junghyuk fighting the dragon completely alone. Despite his incredible strength, he was losing badly. The dragon was simply too powerful, and Junghyuk had already suffered serious injuries. At that moment, Junghyuk was ready to give up. He was prepared to die and restart his life once again. But before he could make that decision, Dokja shouted his name and told him not to surrender. The dragon immediately unleashed a stream of fire. However, Dokja used a special item that absorbed the flames, protecting him from the attack. Then he charged forward and called his teammates into battle. Trusting Dokja completely, everyone followed his plan perfectly. The soldier stepped forward and blocked the dragon's attacks with his shield. Dokja's coworker used magical threads to restrain the creature. Meanwhile, the high school girl leaped onto the dragon's body and desperately tried to stab it. As Jung-hyuk watched them fight, something changed inside him. He had already lost hope. But seeing ordinary people risk their lives without giving up reminded him why he had been fighting all this time. Slowly, Jung-hyuk stood back up. He picked up his sword and joined the battle once again. Dokja already knew the dragon's greatest weakness. Hidden inside its chest was a powerful core. If that core was destroyed, the dragon would die instantly. But there was a terrible catch. Destroying the core would trigger a massive explosion. Whoever broke it would be caught in the blast and die. In the original novel, the hero always survived by sacrificing someone else. But Dokja hated that ending. He never wanted to become that kind of hero. Instead, Dokja decided to change the story. He believed that a true hero protects his friends, even if it costs him his own life. Without hesitation, Dokja rushed toward the dragon. Using all of his strength, he drove the blade of light deep into the creature's chest and shattered the core. The dragon let out a deafening roar. Then a blinding explosion consumed everything. Jung-hyuk could only watch in shock as Dokja disappeared inside the light. Moments later, the dragon's body turned to ash, and the scenario was finally cleared. The battle was over. But instead of celebrating, everyone stood in silence. They believed Dokja had sacrificed himself to save them. One by one, his teammates began to cry. Then, as the dust slowly settled, a figure emerged from the smoke. It was Dokja. He was still alive. Everyone stared at him in disbelief. The reason he survived was because of a special skill called King of No Killing. This unique ability allowed him to return to life once after death. Jung-hyuk could not take his eyes off him. Dokja was unlike anyone he had ever met. He was not a character from the original story. He was a complete mystery. Unlike the heroes Jung-hyuk knew, Dokja never sacrificed his friends to achieve victory. Instead, he was willing to sacrifice himself. For the first time, Jung-hyuk realized that this strange young man might be a better hero than he was. As the group reunited, Dokja understood that their journey was far from over. More dangerous scenarios were waiting ahead, and the challenges to come would be even harder than before. But this time, he was not alone. With his friends by his side, Dokja believed they could overcome whatever the world threw at them. The movie ends with Dokja standing together with his team, ready to face the future and whatever challenges awaited them next.